Hi everybody, this is Lee. And in previous videos, I talked about the past suppression of votes, the election fraud, the accusations of criminal behavior by voters when it's actually the elected officials who are engaging in criminal behavior against the voters, corrupting the whole electoral process. And the fact that the group of independents in North America is rising as a direct result of the corruption and the collusion and the very bad behavior of the two major parties that have just become unbearable. And so both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are losing support to independents, and they are also losing power to independents as more states open up their election systems, their primaries, their ballot access, their petitioning guidelines. They are actually being eased to allow more participation by independents and third-party voters. This has all been a direct result of Bernie Sanders run through the primaries and the benefits of having independents to vote and support his campaign, that more states are opening up their primaries to independents. And the fact that even as of 2016, Bernie Sanders was able to come up to nearly half of the delegates of Hillary Clinton, and many people suspect that if not for the election fraud, that he actually surpassed Hillary Clinton based on the primaries that were open in 2016 and then the caucus system too. And so now more states are opening up their primaries, meaning that another independent candidate can run through those primaries and then the additional primaries having independents support their campaigns. And then in the caucus states too, that it's trending towards support for independence. And so we should not feel captured or subjugated by two corrupt minor parties. And so we've talked about how independents are gaining in power. We've talked about how there's an effort to suppress the votes, how to combat that, how to fight for voting reform, election reform, and then expanding the voting process rather than constricting it. And so, what does that look like for example, and there's an article at Truthout. It's written by Steve Early. He's a union labor organizer. And he's written about the situation in Richmond, which was an oil town. I'll look at the title here. Populist Coalition beats back Chevron in California refinery town. This is by Mark Carlin, and it's dated February 12th. And so I'm going to read two paragraphs that basically shows what this article is about. Steve Early says, in the last 3 election cycles alone, Chevron, its labor allies, and other big special interests spent more than $7 million trying to elect business-friendly candidates and defeat activists who are trying to make their cities safer, cleaner, greener, and more equitable for all its residents. Chevron's tendency to put production and profit ahead of workplace safety, community health, and the future of the planet provides no shortage of issues to organize around between elections. Thanks to their year-round, non-electoral work, candidates fielded by the Richmond Progressive Alliance, or RPA, have won 10 out of the 16 municipal races they have entered since 2004. And so, including in that is the fact that the progressives of Richmond control 5 out of 7 of the city council seats in that city, and that they formerly had a Green Party mayor who was term limited out, and so now they have a liberal Democrat mayor. But the city council is 5 out of 7 progressives, which is terrific. And so Richmond was able to show us that it can be done. When people really focus and come together and unite on issues, it can be done. And so, you know, we look at a lot of the progressive parties or that organizations that have sprung up since Bernie Sanders. I think following his run, maybe 4 at 5. I'm losing count really of the progressive organizations that have sprung up since Bernie Sanders' primary run ended. And then there have been progressive organizations prior to Bernie Sanders, his primary run. There's a Progressive Party in Vermont, there's Peace and Freedom, Socialist Alternative, Democratic Socialist, Green Party, Peace and Freedom. Did I say that already? But there are many progressive organizations all trying to affect the system. And there's different criteria, different segments, different targets. Some are looking to target the U.S. Congress. Some are wanting to fill female candidates or focus on women's issues. Some are focusing on third party candidates. Some are focusing on independents. Some are focusing on write ins. So there are different focuses. And then there's one group that's trying to draft Bernie Sanders to be their party head. And so many different agendas, but really the same agenda. And so this is what's called fragmentation. But anyway, Steve Early has a solution for that too. Again, there was a fragmentation of the progressive groups in Richmond, but they solved that problem and they were able to constructively and productively get candidates into office based on where their issues and policies intersected. They were able to work together. And I'm really hoping that all these progressive groups are willing to coordinate with each other and not overlap and not work at cross purposes and not compete for the same seats. That there are plenty of seats open in 2017 for sure. For those who already have their candidates in place and their machine in place, we need to support those candidates that are on the ballot in 2017. Who have either a Bernie type platform or a Jill Stein type platform that we can get behind. And then 2018, I call it the big dance. There are over, I would say, maybe 435 House seats, 33 Senate seats, 39 governorships coming open for contest in 2018. So over 500 seats. But then there are also low level or lower, further down ballot in the state houses. There are seats coming open. And so I'm really hoping that, we've got people targeting the Congress, which is fine. But we also need people to target the state houses and then the state level positions, because whoever gets into office in 2018, that's going to have a tremendous effect, a direct effect on the gerrymandering as a result of the 2020 census. And so there's going to be a lot of redistricting, and that's one of the issues in North Carolina right now. But I'm going to focus on what Steve Early says about this. He says that the RPA, the Richmond Progressive Alliance, was formed by California Green Party members, dissident Democrats, political independents, socialists of varying stripes, trade unionists, environmental justice advocates, immigrant rights defenders, and other single-issue campaigners. They agreed to set aside differences on bigger picture issues and a sometimes overly competitive focus on their own narrower agendas in favor of creating a united front around achievable city-level goals. This ecumenical approach and a commitment to running viable, corporate-free candidates stands in sharp contrast to the self-defeating sectarian divisiveness and political marginalization of too much of the left. And so I really feel that the rise of progressive groups is a signal that there is an energy that has sustained itself. It has not been defeated. It's ready to roar. back at the machine, at the system in 2017 and 2018. We can. Some people are kind of talking fondly of what's, who's going to be the president in 2020, but it's too soon for that. We need to focus on the political landscape that's happening right before us. That the state legislatures are, piling up in one direction, and that possibly there's going to be an effect on our U.S. Constitution, probably for the worse, if indications are from what we've seen in this past month of having a new regime in the White House. But we definitely need to focus on what's before us and not get too far out there and wondering what might happen rather than focusing on what is happening. And so this is the solution that Richmond Progressive found, that they had to, say, okay, well, we disagree on this, but we agree on about 80%. Let's focus on that 80% and get going on what we need to do. And that's what I see with a lot of the multitude of these progressive groups, that they largely agree more than disagree, maybe as high as 90%, and that the difference might be strategy or something. But I think focusing on that 90% and coordinating with each other, supporting each other's efforts, and not defeating each other's efforts is the way to move forward. It worked in Richmond. They were able to defeat Chevron. And we're in a battle with the fossil fuel industry, which has become powerful due to direct support from high level administrators in the Trump administration. But they can be defeated, or at least neutralized, if we focus and not dismiss those mayoral positions coming open, those municipal positions, city council, neighborhood positions coming open, the school board, the commissioners, all very vital in decision making. As we've seen in North Dakota, that there was a machine, a down ballot machine, a state level machine that pretty much rubber stamped whatever Energy Transfer Partners wanted to do. And so with the right people in those places, we can jam the works and make sure these fossil fuel companies actually do answer to the people, that they pay attention to what the people want and not what the oligarchy decides that it feels like it should have. So anyway, these are solutions, and hopefully they can be expanded and amplified, and maybe provide some use to activists who are organizing and planning for the next 4 years. And it starts today. Good luck.